Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the John Jasniak Show. I got a special guest today, my friend Logan Fullmer. What's going on, man?
Good to see you. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hopping on. Interestingly enough, we're at your space, though.
Yeah.
In Dallas, about to do the live event tomorrow. Told me 200 plus people coming on buying distressed property.
That's right.
How's it? What's going on with this conference and I guess everything involved? What do you got going on?
Yeah, you're right. Distressed property acquisition is I would say about 70% of where our income comes from.
Okay.
And it's just the basis of our entire business. So I've spent some time talking about it on social media, and the feedback was really good. So I've done an event like this before, and this one specifically is about the business of buying distressed property. But in this case, it's not so much of a speaker event where everybody gets up there and tells you how smart and rich and great they are. This is more of like technical, tactical training. This is our business. This is how it works. This is how many people we have. This is what we call leads. This is how we find the leads. This is what we do with them.
Pulling back the curtain.
That's right. So you should be able to walk away from here and say, I generally understand that business. And if you're the kind of person who's mega self-starter, you'll know where we're getting leads, how we're negotiating, what we're doing with them. You should go and be able to do it. If your person needs a little bit of help, you might need some guidance after that. But this is a very big overview of what our office does.
Okay. Love it. That's not the usual conference. I'm a big detail person. I want to get into all the details and technicals of your business and everything. But first, I want to know how the heck you got into this, because I think we share a very interesting commonality of oil field background, which I didn't know until I met you a few months ago at a different event. So how did you go, I think from oil field, right?
That's right.
To real estate or a lot of distressed property?
Yeah, that was a transition. I was working in the oil field, and early on in life, I inherited, well, not early on, but just before then, this was early 20s, I inherited some money from my grandma and thought I was rich and $1 million was going to last my whole life. Didn't. It lasted 3 years. And at that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't live my whole life on a lake, on a boat, having fun. This money didn't go that far.
What year was this?
2012, 13.
Okay, so not that long ago, 10 years ago.
Right. So at that point, I had to go get a job in the oil field. So I worked out in the oil. So that's about the time I was running out of it all. So I went to the oil field for about 3-4 years, and I was just saving money. And I was so frustrated because I realized,
what'd you do with the money? Like, how did it all run out?
Dude,
that people hear $1 million and they're like, that's kind of a lot. Well, maybe not nowadays, but.
Well, I mean, you're right. The places it ran out are the places you would think: alcohol, cars, not working. It's amazing how quickly money runs out when you're not replenishing it.
Yeah.
I was just being a young, stupid guy. I was probably 25, 27 years old, just partying, being dumb, not earning.
Huh.
Yeah. So I get to the oil field, though, and I start to make real money. It's the most money I've ever made in my life. And at this point, I'm completely sober, no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing. And I'm earning and saving and thinking the money went faster than I expected. And I'm finally making 6 figures a year, earning it by myself. I got to save this money, man, because it's not going to go as far as I thought money once did. So I knew I had to invest. So a couple of years in, that's when I started looking at real estate.
Which, by the way, I feel like oil field, I've been there, done that. Like, that is not always the easiest environment to step into, to save money, to stay sober, to just really stay on the ball, because a lot of those guys make a lot of money. They go and blow it.
Bad influences around.
Bad influences. You're in the field. You got big trucks, fancy cars, drugs, girls. Like, they're making money, and they a lot of times don't know what to do.
Those guys would laugh at me because I was driving an old F-150 that was clean and nice, but it was many years old.
Heck yeah.
The camper I had was like the cheapest clean one I could find. And, you get to talking. People know you. They're going to buy a new bass boat or something like that, and they're picking on me because they know I'm just saving. And it was like kind of a running joke in our cruise.
How did you get over that, though? Because I feel like most people would crumble under that pressure, right? They're like,
dude, I had been broke before. I'd been the farthest from sober before, and that was such a terrible place in my life. I don't care what you could say. Nothing would compare to me wanting to not have that anymore.
Gotcha.
That was easy for me.
Okay. What'd you do in the oil field, though? Because
you're like, I don't see you being a roughneck.
Yeah.
So I was
like
a project
No,
I was a project manager.
Okay.
So I went out there as a time clerk, and then I was a project coordinator, project manager, estimator, and kind of the project management side.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, those guys get paid well.
That was it, man.
Yeah, and similar to me, I would say drilling oil wells, getting paid 150 G's a year, engineering. To take that money and just be something click and be smart enough to put it into hopefully cash flowing assets.
Yep. So,
That's the
well,
way to
my money, my assets weren't cash flowing, but this was my second run at money. Most guys get in the oil field as their first run at money.
Okay.
My first run at it was this inheritance that I blew. So my second run at it was, okay, I respect it differently now. I've got a little bit more maturity. So at that point, I just saved. And a couple years in, I started saying, okay, now that I've got this money starting to build up, I mean, I was literally living, taking my per diem and living as cheaply as I could. So I made money on per diem. After I pay my taxes and pay my living, I was hoarding, like literally hoarding money. So it was a little extreme. But within a couple of years, I said, okay, I got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank here. This is 3 years in. I want to start investing. And I found on the east side of San Antonio, I'd watched a very similar situation happen in Austin, where the central business district was very valuable. And the moment you cross the highway, it's the hood. East Austin was terrible. Well, East Austin now is very valuable. So I saw it there. And then another point in my life, I worked in Houston for a couple of years. And I saw a similar thing happen there. And San Antonio was the closest big city to where I was at. So I'd go out to San Antonio every 2 or 3 weekends and I had time off. I'm like, man, the east side's the hood. You cross the highway and you're in the central business district, high value.
Okay. Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start looking over here. That's kind of how I picked my area.
Like, how important was it though to have, I feel like those, whether you call it boots on ground or just intense knowledge of an area, because you'd seen it once, now you're seeing it again happen in your backyard, as opposed to where I come from in like the land flipping or subdividing space, which what I do, people kind of try to take the shotgun approach. They're working all these different states all over the country. They never really see what they're getting into.
Oh, good point. Ooh.
So I feel like for me, it's super important to become an insane, intense knowledge expert on a given area.
So that's a good point. So I don't know that I planned it that way, but when I started to understand that I knew something, I stayed close to what I knew because I didn't want to get burned. So I was only investing in the east side of San Antonio.
Okay.
And when I would go there, I was riding my bike and jogging, straight hood. I'm like clean cut white dude, jogging and riding my bike across all of the streets, like just trying to figure it all out.
Biking for dollars.
Yeah. This is before we had all the apps, all the information on YouTube. So I'd go to the appraisal district, see who owns the property. And strangely enough, at this time, 1 in 5 properties were vacant parcels. They had lots of blight, lots of house fires, and not much was going on there. So I would go look in the appraisal district or the tax office and see the owner of the lot was either right next door, usually the house, or they're a couple blocks away.
Okay.
I could usually walk the neighborhood or drive and find the owner's house and just not.
What were they saying? Like they wanted to get rid of those lots?
All these people had a couple grand owed in taxes. The lots in the appraisal district, everything from a 5,000 square foot, 4,600 was the small common size over there, 4,600 square foot. And the big ones were about a quarter of an acre to a half an acre.
Okay.
Everything was $5,250 on the appraisal district value. That was the number.
With a couple of the grand in back taxes owed.
You'd have, up to a couple grand. So I would offer people, the appraisal district says it's worth this much. And they say, I quit paying the taxes. I don't want to mow it anymore. I'll sell it to you for that $5,250.
Okay. So that's what you paid for them?
That's what I pay. And a couple grand goes to taxes. So the seller nets like $3 grand, $2 grand.
Okay.
But this was the most important part. I was looking at this saying, gosh, I've never really invested before. Like truly, I've worked so hard for this money. I don't want to lose it. I'm scared to lose this money. And I'm buying lots. And because I saw the east side of Austin go up in value, I thought maybe I'll put my money into this and the value goes up. And then I could sell it or develop it or something. But I knew that I'd pick up a lot of equity, or I expected to. So my rationale was, okay, $5,000 for a vacant lot. Like this is a single home lot with a road and utilities.
Okay.
Cheap.
Yeah. Especially in San Antonio.
Right. And at the time I thought, you know what? If this ever gets any attention, the value would go up high. But what are the odds of it being worth less than what I paid? Like that's very rare. So I looked at that, or that's very low probability. So my downside risk was, I thought almost nothing because I could sell it for what I paid and get my money back. But the potential of it going up really high, if the value started to get there and the economy would recover, my upside potential was very high, but my downside was low.
You think that's like super important in real estate, basically minimizing risk? And for me, it's always underwriting on the conservative analysis, obviously.
Yeah, I do.
Because I mean, people just get this shiny object, glorious view of real estate, I feel like, where they're just like, especially nowadays, you see it on Instagram, social media, like, oh, all you can do is make money in real estate.
Everybody's worried about the upside, but they forget about bankruptcy, losing money. Like,
it is possible to lose money.
Dude,
in real estate, it's possible to overpay for an asset, whether it's land or a warehouse or commercial or whatever. All these crazy commercial loans and multifamily loans, look at nowadays with interest rates rising, people are getting crushed.
Yep.
It is possible to overpay.
It is very possible. So I was buying land that had no income, but I thought my downside risk was very small. My upside potential was very high. And then the tax was very low. It was like a couple $100 a year because the values were low. So I knew that I could afford to pay this. I picked up, over the course of 2 years, I picked up about 24 vacant lots.
Okay. So paying like $5,000 a pop?
5 or 10 grand. I'm all in this whole portfolio for about 300 grand, couple dozen lots.
Okay. Oil field money?
Yes.
Rolling over your oil field money.
Yep. That's it. I'd go work, come back, buy a lot or two. Go work, come back, buy a lot or two next month. But this is when the magic, in my mind, it was like, this is what I've been waiting for. Thank you, Jesus. I'm finally getting paid back for being a good person for so long and keeping my shit straight.
Let's go.
I had we started having a lot of pricing pressure in 2015 or 16 on the barrel of oil. People were getting laid off. Rigs were stacking up.
I remember it vividly. That's right when I came out of school and somehow I still had a job.
Wow.
I was excited.
Yeah, you're lucky, man. Everyone's getting laid off. I had to lay off 2 big crews, a couple hundred people that were my crews, and then they laid me off. But right about that time, right before it happened, I got a call from a realtor whose client looked me up in the appraisal district and said, go make this guy an offer. They offered me $200,000 for a lot. And I looked at it and thought,
for one lot.
One lot.
Buy it for 5 or 10, even 10, call it.
Well, it's 2 lots together.
Okay.
I paid 10.
So 10 to 200K.
Grand.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happened in that moment. Things were trading off market, but nothing was trading on market. So you couldn't go look at the comps. Either you knew the builders and knew what was going on, or you didn't know. This told me the market had moved while I wasn't paying attention. It also told me that I wasn't a poor saving oil field hand anymore. I sold one of those and did get that money. That it was $189,000, not $200,000.
Okay.
I recovered 2/3 of that entire portfolio's investment with one deal, and now still have about 24 lots left.
Yeah.
In that moment, I got laid off the next month, and then I'm like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna be a real."
So that was happenstance. That was just like almost. Do you think you like hit the lottery there? Or do you think that was luck, or what do you think it was? I mean, obviously you saw a trend and knew what you were doing, but
yeah, but I took a bet though. Like if someone said, "You've done this, you know exactly how it works, go replicate it," I can't. There's no way you can replicate that again. So there's some luck. Now I put my chips, out there, and it was a good time, but it could have easily not worked like that.
So if you could go back and do that again, or would you advise someone else to make that same investment or same choice?
Yeah, if you're looking at like when the economy gets soft and there's some areas that are starting to get growth, you can look at those factors. And if you got enough money, I mean, I went all in. That was everything I had. So that was today I would never go all in on something.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was younger and stupider and willing to take more risk. And I didn't see the downside risk as big because I knew I could sell.
But you set your own comps on the sell side, basically.
Yes.
But on the buy side, though, when you went to buy those, you didn't have comps. You were just basing it off of this was a gut feeling. It's not going to go any lower. This is what the tax rule is saying.
That was it.
Man, yeah, I would. That is like the complete opposite of what I would do. I want to be like risk adverse, like know the market like the back of my hand. And my strategy is like never to hold anything long term. It's like freaking as quick as you can sell it, as high of yield IRR as you can get.
So today is different. I look at things far differently. But at that moment, I didn't know what I was doing. I was taking bigger risk, but I didn't have a family of 4 kids then. I didn't have the experience. It was far different. But that really got me going. At that point, I said, let's be in real estate. I'm not going back to get another job. This is it.
Did you end up selling all those lots off?
Yeah.
What was the total on that?
And I've sold it over time.
Yeah.
So over the next 5 years, I sold it as I was needing money to capitalize a business, make another investment. But somewhere in the neighborhood, I mean, doing the simple math at $100,000 a pop,
couple million
loss. Oh yeah.
So you were all in for probably what, $300,000 and all out for $2 million or so, and call it 2 dozen,
something like that. Yeah.
2 dozen lots.
Yep.
Damn.
And that change, that inflection point was in about a 24-month period. Again, I could never, I knew this. I watched it. I lived it, and I can't pick an area and time the market like that again. There was so much luck involved.
But would you call those lots? Because right now, I would say at least how you brand yourself is the distressed property, distressed asset guy.
At that moment,
do you think those
stress?
Okay, you wouldn't really classify that as just had some back taxes and we're just maybe
right. The market was at its bottom, just the whole United States market, and in that area in San Antonio, it was a low cost area. And when downtown started to develop more, that area got the lift.
Gotcha.
A lot of perfect storms happening here, man.
That almost, if I hear this story and don't know your rest of your story, I think you're entering into like a land flipper business almost.
So that's what I did for the next couple of years. But here, this is where so that was the most important thing that capitalized me and got me out of a job into real estate. The next most important part is the moment this happened, I immediately was like, let me get back out there. What do we do when we find something good? Let's go get more, right?
By the way, how important do you think it was leaving your job, just like time-wise, to free you up, more freedom, focus on real estate? Like,
Perfect.
well, you got laid off, correct? So
Yeah.
but you didn't make the conscious choice to quit, but by happenstance, laid off, now you're freed up to do real estate or do whatever. Like, how important do you think that is?
It was one of the most important things. I should have left a little earlier, but I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. And this was almost like God saying, boy, go into real estate.
Interesting.
It was the perfect message and signal. Here's a couple $100,000 in your bank account from a sale. You're getting laid off. It's like, this is your destiny. Get the fuck out of this office and go make money.
I have a very similar situation where I feel like if I'm looking back on it, I wish I would have left earlier. But I kept working, so I'm like, I'm making money. I'm putting in my business.
And why didn't you leave earlier?
Man, I was scared.
Right.
I thought that maybe I would fail my business.
Make that flip. What did you leave? What caused that?
It would have been August of 2018. I just got to the point where I felt I was absolutely confident in my business. I had way more than I needed from a cash flow and real estate perspective with my land notes and everything I was doing that.
So you really built your business really big before you left.
It was over $1 million business before I left. I was making like 15 grand a month, just passive income paying.
Gangster. Holy cow.
But if I had quit sooner, I feel like time is the most valuable asset. I could have used that extra time. We're not going to the office. Oilfields long hours.
But you may not have had quite enough maturity at the time. You didn't have the experience at the time.
Yeah.
It's tough. I say I should have quit earlier too. And obviously knowing what you know now, like, get out of high school and go do this, but it's not always how it works, you know?
Agreed. So how does it go from almost like, land flipping for a short amount of time, maybe you're saying, to like what you're doing now? And what you're doing now is a lot more complex. Just going to buy 24 lots and make some money.
This is the big kicker. The moment that guy bought that lot from me and closed, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to go get as many of these as I can before people find out that they're valuable. And I'm knocking on doors, calling people, and they all already knew. I was like, fuck. Dang. Like my honey hole's gone. So then I'm like, you're only as good as your next deal, but my next deal, I didn't know what that was. So I'm thinking, well, I've had my lick. It's over with. I can sell these, but like, what am I going to do next? And one of the properties, I was getting ready to go sell it a couple months later. And I was kind of getting sloppy. A lot of these things I was going through title, and some of them would have judgments, liens, multiple owners, and I just wouldn't close on them because it wasn't worth it. It's too much. I don't know what to do. I'm new.
By the way, that's a lot of what land flippers nowadays, I feel like, teach, especially the gurus, is like, there's a title problem, there's some
opportunity.
Just move on to the next deal.
Well, okay. So that's what a lot of people do because velocity matters. And if you're a specialist in that thing, don't fool with these, which I do support and agree with. But here's what happened. One of the properties I bought without title insurance had a little bit of back taxes, and I got a deed from this guy. Okay. Just kind of sloppy, no big deal. Plus, I think I paid like $3 or $4 grand. At this point, I'm like, whatever. Well, then when I went to go sell it, I'd only bought one of 9 owners. There were 8 other owners out there, so I bought 1/9 instead of the whole thing. And I went down this summer project of a lawyer telling me, all right, let's look this person up. Now you go negotiate with them, buy their deed. Now let's get one of them to help us with an affidavit of heirship. So I aggregated the interest, got an affidavit of heirship. There were judgments and liens. We worked through cleaning those up, negotiating them. Some of them fell off because they were too old. And then I was all in this deal for like 10 or 15 grand. And it was still worth 100 grand like all the other ones. And I thought, hold on. Yeah. The honey hole isn't dry. There's tons of them like this in this part of town.
Interesting.
Right back. That is when this whole business really started.
Okay. How many of those deals like that did you do out there, you think?
At this point, maybe 1,000.
Ooh.
So I've got an office of 20 people. I've got an attorney, a genealogist, and a private investigator in my office. And we
full time?
Yes. And we intentionally look for this. I'm getting ready to hire my second attorney now because our docket is just packed.
Yeah, I saw you had a post up online. I was going to ask you about that, hiring
the hardest kind of person to hire. Oh my gosh.
Why? You think a lot of attorneys are schmucks? They're not good.
Well, the field is interesting. Like, you've got a lot of good employee attorneys that'll go work for a big firm and they're high paid and they do well. but some of them don't want to work for someone, so they go hang their shingle like a plumber or electrician would, and they're very high paid professional or trade, so they don't have to answer to anybody. So there's this big gap in that. And a lot of guys that are in the legal field, they want to go work for a big company because it's prestigious and you get big cases and it's high pay. Well, I'm willing to pay that same pay, but I don't have that big fancy name. I'm not one of the massive, firms. And for them, it's almost like I'm going to work in a small business. Where's my security? So
you think you have to pay more?
Well, I do have to pay solid to get that, but they don't believe that they should go work. Like when they see the job posting, they don't think they should come work for a company like me because it's not stable.
Well, this is why I feel like for everyone listening, and what I tell people all the time, the credibility where social media comes into play, your brand is like, well, I'm in real estate. I'm making money. I can sit behind a computer probably and not get my face out there or whatever. But like if you're like us and you want to build a company that's worth something, that means something, you need to attract the right people. How are you going to attract the right people? You need to be the right person.
So what I've now started to do just in the last month is show these folks our program, our social media profiles.
Yeah.
I've been showing our business. I'm inviting them to come into our office instead of do a Zoom interview. We're starting to get better candidates and better traction. It's just, we're going to get who we need probably the next month, but it was a much longer process than hiring a sales guy. That's a big learning curve for sure. In the future, I'll go with recruiters for attorneys.
Gotcha. Well, my experience with attorneys has not been great. I have what I think is a badass one who's been working with me now for, I think, over 2 years. And it's before that, my experience was not good, especially in the real estate space, because it can get very complicated very quickly. And a lot of beginners, and I always tell you guys this, they want either referrals to my attorney, referrals to some other attorney.
No.
We're not giving it. I can't give it. He won't let me. Plus, even if he would, I probably wouldn't give it. And you got a lot of people out there who don't want to pay for the knowledge, pay for the time. They call up an attorney and they expect them to answer the phone and talk to him for 30 minutes. And it's like, time is money. These guys aren't going to pick up the phone for you for 30 minutes and talk about your BS land deal that has a simple title issue that you can't figure out.
That's one of the problems. One of the other problems is these are complicated, and attorneys focus on certain things, but they don't focus on the business case and the total solve. So that's kind of an issue. And when you have an inexperienced investor coming to them, they expect the lawyer to fix it. But here's another issue. He's a small shop. He doesn't have 3 paralegals and a receptionist and 3 partners. It's the attorney and someone who answers the phone. So he's doing way too much work in a small business. And a lot of attorneys are great attorneys, but they're poor business owners.
Gotcha.
So they can't manage that workflow well. So they don't call back people back. They'll take in a client. You don't hear from them for 6 weeks. It's a poor business management choice or problem.
What's, if you don't mind sharing, if you will share, what's your attorney, your legal fee spend on a yearly basis?
So right now I'm between $25,000 and $50,000 a month.
Damn.
But the crazy part is, so I have 1 attorney that's full-time and 5 others that are part-time in different jurisdictions. So as I bring another guy in-house, my legal bills will they're probably going to stay the same right now, but we're going to get much more work done because I'm no longer paying $300-$400 an hour to somebody.
Okay.
I'm paying them a salary that equates to $150. $120 an hour is $240,000 a year, which is about where it's going to land. So I'm lowering my cost per hour, but they're working for me full time.
Okay. Let's give the folks some tips. Like, what are 1, 2, or 3 tips for finding a good real estate attorney, if you had?
Referrals is the first one.
Okay.
The second one is pay your bill as fast as you can. You need to impress them with the money because attorneys hate collecting and people bitch about their legal bills. You answered an email, you charged me $100 for 15 minutes. They're cranky. Dude, you're going to a lawyer. Why? Because you're about to make $1 million on a subdivision. Quit bitching about $400 worth of a bill. So the moment the attorneys say, send me a retainer for $5,000, I send them 10.
Okay.
And then the moment they want me to re-up that, I re-up it. After that, they never ask me for a retainer ever again. I'm a good client. I don't argue about my bills. The moment they need something from me for an affidavit or a piece of evidence or to schedule discovery, I answer it quickly. Dude, I have probably 20 lawyers' cell phone numbers in my phone. I can call them on a Saturday and they will answer my call because I work so hard to be one of the best clients they have, because that is the hardest trade to get in this business and you need it so desperately.
It's almost like giving value to them as a client instead of just expecting it all.
They know I'm paying the bill. They know I'm be a great client. Yeah.
Love that.
I just won a lawsuit yesterday. It was appealed to the Third Circuit of Appeals, about $200,000 in legal fees over a 2.5-year period. Ooh. And I just got the ruling yesterday that we were successful. And the trial court's ruling was upheld, which means we won again.
Are you paying? You have to pay the legal fees still.
I paid legal fees,
Yeah.
but it was for specific performance of an apartment complex.
Ooh.
The man had to give me the apartment, and I asked the judge to hold back my legal fees because I won them. So I have that money sitting in a court registry while the appeal was happening. And now because we won, I'm going to go to a motion to disperse funds, and I'm going to get my legal fees out of the court registry.
So I've actually never had to sue for performance, thankfully, now in 7 years. Obviously, I'm kind of familiar with it and the process and everything. How big was the apartment purchase?
It was a $2.5 million apartment that
Okay.
the guy signed to sell me for $1.05 million. So here's what happened. Dude,
Okay.
way undershot it. A lot of our business is buying.
So he sign this contract for $1 million and it was like, oh shit, it's worth 2 or
Here's
2.5,
what
whatever.
happened. He lives in California. He hadn't been to the site in 10 years. He got his appraisal value, his updated value from the appraisal district, and it went from about $1 million to 2.5. And we called him about some diligence documents, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna close." Like, dude, you got a contract. This is Texas. The judge will make you. That's
And he
not
said,
gonna
we're going to
happen.
find out.
That's right.
And he did.
Here's what I told him. I've done probably a dozen performance lawsuits because when someone signs them, they say they're going to do something, you better do it. I'm doing my half. You can do yours. I explained to him, I've done this. You'll be the 14th specific performance lawsuit I've done. I've won 13 of those. I'm going to title with my cashier's check, and I'm going to close. And the title company's going to sign an affidavit that says, I did, you didn't, and every other term of that contract is in good condition. Then I'm going to go sue you, and I'm going to win. And the judge is going to make you pay my legal fees, and you're going to wish it didn't happen this way when you're giving me the asset and paying my legal fees. He hung up on me.
Dang.
Today, the judge let me win, gave me the legal fees, and gave me the asset. And that guy is wishing that he wouldn't have done that.
Have you talked to him since?
Nah, we haven't talked to him in like a year. It's been all lawyers.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Careful with contracts, folks. Like you sign a even on the buyer side. Like you got to be careful with contracts. Those things are binding.
You kind of know what you're doing. When you start out at low value stuff, people don't sue that much. But when you start getting the higher price point and there's real money involved and you're dealing with people who have it together, you have to do what you promise you're going to do.
Yeah.
So people get mad and say, isn't that me? And I say, I don't know. He expected me to do what I was going to do. And I did everything up to that day. But why is it fair for him to not do what he said he was going to do? In fact, The law is on my side. We have hundreds of years of case law. Like, come on.
So that, you would call that a distressed situation?
Well,
I mean, not it's specific.
I got good at litigation and very familiar with it because of the stress stuff. So all this stuff that has judgments and liens and title problems, you have to file a lot of lawsuits to clear up title problems. And I became familiar with the situation. So when other situations came up, I already got a lawyer. I'm already very comfortable with this. And I'm thinking, why did this guy close? Let's find out.
What's the biggest property, the biggest hit you've had with, because you talk a lot about buying, and obviously I tried to do the same thing, buy 20 to 50 cents on the dollar, make a bunch of money. I mean, for you, there's a lot more potential legal and paperwork and stuff, processes involved. What do you think has been like your biggest score?
Ooh, it's the biggest deal I've ever done. I'm right in the middle of it right now. It's 100 acres, 97 acres, just outside Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Entry price is $7.5 million.
Damn.
Sales price is $20 million with an $8 million mud I get to keep after the sale. So my total exit's gonna be $28 million. Now, I don't get to keep all that because I brought some friends in as investors. I couldn't afford all that cash. And the risk thing, I didn't want to do debt because I don't want to be paying debt service on land that could take years to develop. So I did the deal, brought friends in to pay for, me and my partner retained a third, and then the partners get the 2/3.
Okay.
So yeah, me and him will walk with about $8 million out of that deal.
Nice.
Total deals. So here's a neat thing though. We were going to wholesale it for $2 million profit. Then we figured out through this process that we could develop it and make more. So we kept it. So we actually rolled our $2 million equity into it. And that's how we got our more or less third of the deal. So at this moment, I have no cash except $200,000 in engineering and legal fees. And I rolled my assignment fee quote into it. So I have almost no money in the deal. A couple $100,000.
Infinite returns almost.
Yeah.
Which props to you, by the way, for sharing those numbers, because most real estate guys would say, oh, we got this $28 million project. We're buying for 7.5, whatever. And it's like,
they want you to think they get it all.
Exactly. And people don't see the behind the curtains of what the numbers actually shake out to be.
Right. Yeah.
Which the more I feel like we share that, just the more awareness, the more people can learn and just I don't know. You don't want to be that person that's lying about your numbers.
Right. My message. So we're going to spend it. Well, dude, I'm really excited about tomorrow. But my message is these deals work with itsy bitsy tiny deals, and they work with massive deals. A large volume of our stuff. I'm going to pull up our Salesforce export tomorrow and show a very common deal size, about a $250,000 semi-rural tract of land.
Okay.
That we are all in for 50 grand and we sell it for about 200. That is the most, if you were to average our avatar of everything averaged in, that's about what it falls into. Now we have some that are smaller, some that are much bigger. The very common deal is we give 25 grand to taxes, 25 grand to the sellers. We're all in for 50. And then my wife just dumps it on MLS for 200 to 250. So those returns are massive. And we've gotten to the point where we're so good at dealing with the distress issues. I can wrap these up in average timeline is 90 days now, 120 days.
Okay.
Those are big multiples, but think about it. The people that are flipping houses, they borrow 200 grand to go flip a house and they make 50 if they're lucky.
Yeah.
I'm spending 50 to make 150. This is everybody should do this.
Yes.
But the reason I'm transparent about this stuff and the reason I talk about these size deals is I want people to know, me and you were in the oil field less than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we're doing stuff like this. We're not rocket scientists. We're not doctors. A lot of people have more access to this than they think.
And really, I think kind of the sky is the limit. And to me, it's a lifestyle choice, right? Because you can stay as that guy who's buying 24 lots and flipping them and making hundreds of thousands, or you step into potential big boy playground. You learn how to deal with contracts, attorneys, title issues, building roads and subdividing land, whatever it may be. The more you learn, the more you earn. The sky is the limit with real estate. I mean, you can get into big time development. You could be doing skyscrapers if you want to. It's gonna be a lot more complex, air rights, etc., zoning.
Yeah.
I mean, the more that you want to get into, you can do it. But I think a lot of people just, and it kind of bugs me, they think almost like simple or small-minded, and they're like afraid to take on those challenges and to actually learn and progress with all these different issues.
I think it depends on who you are. For me, it's exciting. It's fun. And
the challenge.
Yeah, we don't live on all that money. Our lifestyle is much lower than what we're earning, but we earn this money. We put it back in the business. We do a new deal, a bigger deal, more volume. We buy a bigger office. We just keep growing. And to me, it's a chess match. It's fun. I'll never spend all this money. My kids will be the ones to blow it after I'm dead, probably. But it really is something about the next deal. How much better can you get? What more can you figure out?
Are you doing just basically Texas, or are you working in other states? Because I'm mainly 100% Texas.
Yeah, at this point, I've probably done half a dozen deals outside of Texas, but our volume is 98% Texas.
Because I imagine there's got to be different nuances in law, obviously, outside of Texas. Some of the principles would be the same, but
one of the biggest differences, Texas is an affidavit of heirship state.
Yep.
And a lot of places like Florida, for example, they don't allow an affidavit of heirship. And if you're going to do any type of estate work, you must go into the probate court and do it at minimum a small administration of the estate. And that's a radical difference. I look at all the states with all the laws that vary and say that's the most meaningful one. Because when you're dealing with this kind of distress, people fighting, lots of owners, getting everybody rounded up to one place at one time and all agreeing is impossible. If it wasn't, they'd do it on their own. For us, we're buying shares one at a time until we aggregate them all and solving his child support liens, his repo collection liens. This guy's giving it to me for free because he just don't want to deal with it anymore. And if you can't aggregate the pieces like that individually, it makes it a lot harder.
Yeah. One thing I'm fascinated about, at least in Texas, is undivided interest. That's kind of been my one most complex distressed property deal where there were 4 stakeholders, each owned 25%. I came in and bought one of them, the 25%, and then to get
Did you get that 25% at a discount to market?
Yeah, it wasn't a super discount, but it was probably 60% because the guy was pretty savvy with what was going on, but it was just such a sweet area. It was like, I really wanted to do it. So it was a discount, but it probably could have been a bigger discount. I know a lot of stuff that you do is super steep discounts. But as soon as I kind of threatened thinly, like, hey, get on board and give me the 25% that I want. Otherwise, we might be going to court and potentially even forcing a sale and, getting all that involved. They were like, oh, yeah, we really want to keep our property. Like, what 25% do you want? And then it worked out to be a really good deal because they're like, here, what 25% do you want? I got the exact one I wanted, and now we'll make probably like $500,000 on it.
Boom.
Yeah.
We're going to spend so much time talking about undivided interest tomorrow.
Really? Okay, I'm excited for that because I'll be there. But undivided interest, I think, because no one goes after those properties, no one direct mails them. All the land people will teach people scrub out, LLC.
Get those out of your lead.
Take the undivided interest out of your leads. And I'm like, man, that could be a whole mail campaign or marketing campaign, obviously, in and of itself, is going after undivided interest at a steep discount.
Dude, I got about 8 people in the office beating the phones every single day, calling people, working off genealogy charts, finding who's who, and making offers. One of the most important foundational concepts of that is your first entry point, your first share of the property, you got to buy it for like pennies. Usually it's what we do.
Okay.
I mean, we start out with $500 to $1,000. That's our typical.
Is that just to like anchor the other owners low as like, this is?
Well, no, what it does is your first share of that property, let's just say let's say for easy numbers, the property's worth $100,000 and there are 4 owners, 25% each.
Okay.
If you're buying your first share for $500 and it's worth $25,000, you have room, you have protection. We're back at the safety thing now. I can spend a little money on lawyers. I can carry a cost for a little while. I can not get as good a deal on the next share, but I got a big amount of equity here, so I'm protected in equity. And if all this goes bad, you can file a partition lawsuit and the judge will divvy it up and I'm not going to lose money. Okay. So we're usually offering $500, $1,000, $1,200, like super low amounts. And we just buy one share at a time because people are feuding. And every once in a while, the last person, they won't sell at all. So either I'll sue them or I can just say, look, let's go sell together. You get your 25%, I get my 75% of the sale.
So do you think just to get your foot in the door with one share, one owner is like the most important part, because then you have leverage against the others? Like, this is what we can do if you don't sell to me.
Well, there's another wrinkle in that. So you can file a partition lawsuit and you'll get your money for your share. But another thing is, in Texas, the way the laws are written is, if we're brothers and we're co-tenants, is the way we call it in Texas, you cannot threaten my equity. So you have to maintain standing on your ownership interest in the property, good standing, so that my equity is not threatened. For example, if you don't pay your taxes on that property, my equity is threatened because it could get foreclosed on for the taxes, right?
So what would happen in that case? You don't pay or I don't pay taxes and you're an owner.
Boom. So the way case law works in Texas, if you and I are partners or brothers or whatever, and we own the property together and you don't pay your taxes, I pay mine, but you're not paying yours, we can be foreclosed on together. Now I go pay yours, but guess what? You have a debt that you owe me. You know what happens now?
What?
Go to the county court. I'm going to sue you for that debt and ask for an equitable lien against the property. If you don't pay that debt and we'll win the lawsuit, the judge will give me an equitable lien against your share of the property, which I'll then foreclose on.
Huh. So this is something very specific, probably to undivided interest with the tax issue.
That's it.
In Texas.
There now also, you can't commit waste to the property. So like if it's time to put a new roof on the farmhouse and you won't share the money, I need to put it on there so the building doesn't waste. So I'm going to have to pay for that whole roof, but you owe me for half now.
Interesting.
There's a lot of little pieces like that can add up.
So I am just starting to dabble in that space. Obviously super excited tomorrow to learn more about that. But if it's not tomorrow, how else am I or someone else learning, you think, about that? Google, through experience? Is there some book? Is there some resource? A good attorney?
All the above can help, and some of them will know it, but I'm not sure that I know anybody, at least in our state, that understands how to deal with these properties like this. I don't think there's anybody. We do it in extreme volume and we're really good at it. So that's one of the reasons we found there's an opportunity there that other folks aren't quite doing this, and those are the deals that other folks discard.
Yep.
If we can figure out how to do that and get big margins, that's our opportunity.
So I know my friend and your friend too, Clint Turner, is speaking tomorrow about how, at least from what I saw on the schedule, how to kind of get into the distressed asset game. Now, how would you say you get into the distressed asset game?
You figure it out on your own. It took me 4 or 5 years to start getting proficiency, and I was spending tons on legal bills, learning, trial and error, where you pay somebody that knows how to do it to teach you how. Clint didn't know anything about that kind of business. He was good at a lot of other real estate. Came into a coaching program, paid me $30,000. In the first 120 days, he'd bought $1 million piece of industrial property, a $200,000 rural tract of land, another one's worth about $150,000. In the $1 million tract of industrial land, he's in it for $290,000.
Okay.
So he picked up $700,000 in equity on that deal.
Not bad.
The other one that's worth $200,000, he's in it for like $50,000. The other one's worth $150,000, he's in it for like $75,000 or $80,000. So every one of those he bought from between 20 and 50 cents on the dollar
Wow.
in the first 90 days because he's got like a support team, my lawyers, my surveyors, my office staff supporting him to figure that out.
I think one thing, I just came back this morning actually from Florida and 10X Growth Conference, and one thing that real estate people are very guilty of is not seeking help, not learning, and I think the reason is, I'd be curious to see your feedback, is we start doing deals and we probably make a little bit of money and we think we know it all. We think we're the shit. You make some money, you start doing deals, you make some money, like, oh, I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to read a book. I don't need to go to a conference. I don't need to pay someone for coaching or, go to a local meetup or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's honestly a pet peeve of mine with real estate people because they're like so cocky about like they think they know.
I got it.
I think it's because especially the successful ones are people who have made some money doing a deal. It's like they're validated by that money.
Probably.
And now they're like, oh, I'm the best. I don't need to learn anything.
When you see folks in the professional services where you have to go get all these degrees, like to be a doctor or a lawyer, it takes them a lot longer. They've got to get all these certifications. They got to be bright people, but there's no barrier to entry in real estate. So these folks, you can have someone who's not super bright, but if they can follow directions and make a couple good deals, they can make big money.
Yeah.
So it's a different metric here. I mean, you can have folks from all walks of life who really aren't that great and can figure out how to literally make $500,000 a year in their sleep.
Well, real estate makes the most millionaires, and I think that's for a good.
Dumbass, $500,000 a year. He thinks he's God.
Some oil field worker goes 300 G's on a lot and turns it into 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just blows my mind, man. Especially in real estate, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. I'm subdividing. You're doing more of this complex, distressed property stuff. People are doing fix and flip, wholesale. I mean, just the only thing that I could say is you got to start. You got to get your foot in the door. You got to start making moves, meeting people, shaking hands, making stuff happen.
Yeah. You know, the neat thing about real estate, though, when I got started doing this, there wasn't quite as much on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all this. But now,
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to stuff like guys like you or I will share, and we share a lot of really good, actionable information. So I think you can go out there and get really well educated for free these days.
You good for free.
Now, once you get started and going and making money and you want to learn an extreme specialty, like, for example, how to subdivide land in West Texas, that's a very niche thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone gives you $5, $10, $20, $30, $50,000, whatever your number is, you'll teach them in a quarter of a year how to do this. And it might have taken you 5 years to learn that.
Yeah.
So if people do want to continue to learn and they're willing to pay for it, dude, there's huge opportunity in this space. You don't have to go learn how to work on somebody's brain for 8 years in college and pass an aptitude test. No, give me 30 G's and come over to my office. I'll teach you. Like, it's crazy.
Very true. With that being said, like, what are you most excited about for yourself, like here going forward in the near future? Because if you're asking me, like, I'm looking at you, you're growing on social media. You got a very unique thing I feel like you're doing with this sort of niche in real estate, more complex, super cool. And I feel like you're on the track to maybe really do something big. I don't know what you're most excited about, but from the outside, that's what I'm seeing.
You know, like I said earlier, I've got an office of 20 people. So Dave, Ryan, Kyle, Bill, Jake. I have 5 business partners.
Okay.
So there are 5 different companies in our office, and I own a share of each one of those. And I've helped teach those guys how to do these deals, help them capitalize. So they're running a business with employees and everything, and I own a share of it. So I kind of help them when they have problems. I taught them in the beginning. So we have a lot going on, and I get to be part of all of those. And as this company grows, it's really fun to watch and help that growth. So I'll step into one guy's company and work for 3 or 4 months and kind of work through a bunch of stuff, hiring people, training, improving their sales team, just doing stuff. And I get to watch it develop. So that's been fun watching those. The last year's been tough. We had to work really hard to fix a lot of things and adjust to the market. And now I'm like, golly, we've got some big developments going and things are starting to get easier again. I don't know what I'm most excited about other than having a couple good years of like not having to work so damn hard again.
You think that'll actually happen though? Because I keep telling myself that, and I'm like, man, I keep working harder and harder and doing more and more and more. And like, I like it. Like, I'm embracing that. I'm fully in that grind mode. I tell myself, like, don't quit, never give up, like, super consistent. So like, I'm fully embracing that. But I guess that's a personal choice.
Well, you're probably right. I think why I look at it being just smoother, things really stabilized and business was running really well. The last year, just through a wrench in everybody's
Is that
boat.
because of interest rates and the stuff going on with the economy, or what do you think?
That's it. Yeah, interest rates shot up. All the buyers that were very not discerning backed off and went away, and only the very sophisticated people that knew what they were doing and had access to capital were moving. Retail buyers were moving too, but the investors tightened up, especially on commercial, especially on land. So it changed our ability to just liquidate on market and generate new cash quickly. So I've never had to deal with this. Cash would come in, and we always had excess cash, more cash sources than cash uses. So we're not watching the bank every day like a lot of businesses. But in the last year, I mean, we're having cash flow meetings weekly with a lot of the companies. Like, oh my gosh, these are our cash uses. Okay, where are our sources? Get this one to close quicker. Hold on, delay that cash commitment. Like, we had meetings like that for a year, and we're a stable company. We had tons of cash, tons of equity. But when you're moving that fast, we had to watch tight. And that's just hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The growth and the excitement is fun. But doing that stuff for a year is like, man, it's tough work.
Which I like to look at my bank accounts and everything every single morning and be super dialed into that, because I feel like the more you focus on something, the more energy you put into it, the more that it's going to change, hopefully for the better. I don't know.
But looking at that as a motivational tool is one thing. Looking at it as a risk management tool, making sure that folks don't go negative or write hot checks, or to make sure that we have the cash we need to make good on the commitments that's coming up, that's a whole different ball game than an inspirational tool.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you.
Fucking hard work, man.
It is.
That causes, so it's a good example. Like, I've been working with some of these partners for 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. We've never had major disputes, but when do people have problems in their marriage? When they have financial problems. When do financial problems happen in a business? When you have a tough economy. So we've had so much more stuff where, like, business partners you have to really get in the thick of it and say, you're really testing what your business partnerships are made of in a time like that. So I'm glad that we made it through that unscathed, but we had times we were testing our partnerships. Like, it's tough. It's a lot of work.
I bet you're going to be stronger because of that going forward.
I can definitely see that. And guys had to get good at stuff that they weren't good at in the past. It didn't matter because the market was so good. We had wind in our sails. So the fun part, okay, now I know what it is. The fun part is going to be coming out of this where we've really backed ourselves up. We've really protected ourselves. We've really gotten good, and we are unshakable as the market starts to recover. Holy shit, look out. We were growing and learning in that market last time. Now we know what we're doing. We got cash. We got credit. It's time to clean up.
And do you think, I think knowledge and experience and expertise almost compounds exponentially. So obviously this isn't a get rich quick scheme. You're not making millions overnight, whether it's with land or complicated legal issues with property, tax liens, etc. It's not going to happen overnight, but the more you keep pushing, it's just going to compound exponentially.
When that, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. When things are rolling, and it's like a car. Once you get it up to speed, man, it's so much easier to keep it going. Money starts being made much faster and efficiently and quicker because
I feel like I'm about to say money starts printing and money starts.
Look careful.
That's sometimes I feel like it starts printing itself. We got like 3 or 4 note payoffs, just boom, hits like 100,000, like 50,000, like 80,000 people. Like, I want to pay off my note, and it's like sometimes it just, when it rains, it pours and it starts printing.
Yeah.
And we all hope to be in those situations.
So the interesting thing is when that day happens, it feels like it's printing. But you worked very hard to learn this game, save that money, create these notes, get them going, service them. And one day someone comes and says, here's $80,000. But man, we put in a lot of work to get there.
I like that, man. That's perspective. What else? I'm super excited for your event tomorrow. I think I'm going to learn a lot. So I appreciate you putting it on. I know, especially with some stuff going on we talked about beforehand and just everything that is involved going to a live event. It's not always easy.
It's not. I think what's going to be fun about tomorrow for me is this is something that's, I don't want to say it's a well-kept secret because we talk about it like crazy, but there's not a lot of attention. And what I want people to take away from that tomorrow is this might be something new. They want to just dive in, but maybe not. Maybe they're in the land business like you and you say, you know what, those really nasty deals, I'm not going to let them go. I'm going to decide to take on a couple of them next year, and I'm going to get my entry point at a low price from the first owner and make it a pet project for 2 years. Just chip away at it when I can and pick up some just remarkable deals that way. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you will at least understand how to size these things up and what they look like and what all the pieces are, so that when you see one, if you're too busy, you don't want to make it your pet project for the moment, you can call my office and say, hey, here's the deal. It's pretty well teed up. I think it's a great deal. Do y'all want to take a look at it? And we look at it and say, come for the ride with us as a partner, or we'll buy that position out because you know you've negotiated a good deal. We'll take it from you and give you money.
People forget you can buy and trade undivided interests or positions in property. You don't have to be the whole property.
Yeah.
So that's always an opportunity too. So today is April 5th and tomorrow is April 6th. It'll be your event. Again, super excited for it. Where can people find you or connect with you? What do you got going on, whether it's social media or wherever you're at?
I've been working the most lately to work on my Instagram profile. So Logan Fullmer, there's 2 L's in Fullmer. Just dump that into Google, social media profiles. You'll find me out there. Come meet me on Instagram. That's what I'm doing the most effort on right now.
Love it, man. It's a great platform, especially for real estate and education. So appreciate you being on the show, man, and best of luck tomorrow. I'm excited. I know you're excited. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
No doubt. It's been fun, John. I appreciate it. Great host.
Yes, sir.
Fun.
Thanks, man.